Class. Let's go ahead and thank Mrs. Beck and Miss Yetter for helping out and giving you some English time today. Of course, today is Friday, April 12th, which means today, and apologize for this date right here, but the page number is correct. Please understand that your reading log is due today simply because, again, I don't want you to hold on to this during your week-long break as you could easily lose it. But of course, when you turn it in, you can always go home and finish the reading for chapter 17. And you do have the remainder of this class period to work on it as well. But if you would like, you can go ahead and wrap up on math as well, and Miss Yetter will give you the instruction for that. Until today's learning objective, you will be identifying the direct quote and interpreting character perspective point of view for Friday's section. Now, I'm not going to be there to stamp Thursday's section, so don't worry, I'm not going to penalize you for that. So once it's turned in today, you want to give that to Mrs. Yetter, and once it's turned in today, you will get credit for Thursday's section. And Friday's section, of course, I do not stamp as it's, once it's turned in, that will be considered on time. So today we are going to be finishing chapter 17. That's pages 231 to 238. But before we do that, some of you have been asking about your Dr. Martin Luther King I Have a Dream poem and the collaborative poster that we worked on yesterday. If you have not given me the poster yet, your portion that is, it is due at the end of class today as well, so you can give both items, please with your name of course, to Miss Yetter. And finally, when you are done with everything and you have nothing to do, there is no reason for that, as you still have Read Theory, 5 Read Theory quizzes due by Tuesday, April 30th. And before you know it, it's going to be here because we do not have many instructional days left. Notice only 35 days left. And also, when you're done, you can also work on Chapter 17 of your To Kill a Mockingbird flip book, which is this one right here. I know chapters 17 and 18 are combined, but you can easily do 1 and 2. So let's go ahead. Let's go straight to your reading log for Friday's section. It is April 12th, 2019. Pages 231 to 238. The main ideas include Mr. Ewell, that's Bob Ewell, who was Mayella's father, the supposed alleged victim's father, that is. He testifies. Remember yesterday, Sheriff Tate testified, and today it's Mr. Bob Ewell. And again, Mr. Bob Ewell is the father of the multiple kids who are not educated, the kids who talk back to the teachers who refuse to go back to school after the first day. This is the white family who has, of course, no education and has no compassion and etiquette behavior standards at all. In court, the judge will continue to ask for order in the court as it appears that his comments can be unruly, and the jury and also those in the audience too will respond to him. And then there will be interrogation for motive, and that's where Atticus comes in as the defending attorney for Tom Robinson. This is his opportunity to shine, to be courageous, and to face the very man who wants Tom Robinson punished for a crime that he did not commit. For today's point of view, it is, we see the hourglass icon here, and it says for number 1, analyze, how does a character view himself or herself? We are going to put these glasses on the perspective of Bob Ewell, who is taking the stand today. Bob Ewell takes the stand with arrogance and privilege. He thinks he is, sorry for that, not an article, but a pronoun. He is better than Tom Robinson. I'd like you to find a quote as I read. I'm not going to find a quote for you. Please find a quote that shows he feels this way, how he feels entitled to be in court, to automatically be assumed to be telling the truth. And once you find the quote, you want to go ahead and analyze this character. How is he or she viewed by others? You can put that from the perspective of, let's say, Atticus, from the perspective of the judge, and or from the perspective of the jury or audience themselves. And how would you know this? Based on their interaction or reaction to Mr. Ewell as he takes the stand. So we're going to start on page 231, but to have a clear transition, we'll start off on page 230 at the very bottom. Here, Judge Taylor glanced sharply at the witness and must have decided his speculations devoid of evil intent, for he subsided sleepily. What time was it, Mr. Ewell? Just before sundown. Well, I was just saying Mayella was screaming a fit to beat Jesus. Another glance from the bench silenced Mr. Ewell. Yes, she was screaming, said Mr. Gilmore. Again, guys, Mr. Gilmore is his attorney. Mr. Ewell looked confusedly at the judge. Well, Mayella was raising this holy racket, so I dropped him load and gun as fast as I could, but I run into the fence. But when I got distangled, I run up to the window and I seen. Mr. Ewell's face grew scarlet red. He stood up and pointed his finger at Tom Robinson. I seen that black end yonder running around on my Mayella. So serene was Judge Taylor's court that there were few occasions to use his gavel, but he hammered fully 5 minutes. Atticus was on his feet at the bench saying something to him. Mr. Hectate, the sheriff, as first officer of the county, stood in the middle aisle, sculling the packed courtroom. Behind us there was an angry muffled groan from the colored people. Reverend Sykes leaned across Dill and me, pulling at Jem's elbow. Mr. Jem, he said, you better take Miss Jean Louise home, Mr. Jem, you hear me? Jim turned his head. Scout, go home. Dill, you go home. You and Scout go home. You gotta make me first, I said, remembering Atticus's blessed dictum. Again, Atticus told the kids that they could stay. Jim scowled furiously at me, then said to Reverend Sykes, I think it's okay, Reverend. She doesn't understand it. I was mortally offended. I most certainly do. I can understand anything you can. Page 232. Aw, hush, she doesn't understand it, Reverend. She ain't even 9 yet. Reverend Sykes' black eyes were anxious. Mr. Finch, know you all here? This ain't fit for Miss Jean Louise or you boys either. Jim shook his head. He can't see us this far anyway. It's all right, Reverend. I knew Jim would win because I knew nothing could make him leave now. Dill and I were safe for a while. Atticus could see us from where he was if he looked. As Judge Taylor banged his gavel, Mr. Ewell was sitting smudgely in the witness chair, surveying his handiwork. With one phrase, he had turned happy picnickers with sulky, tense, murmuring crowd being slowly hypnotized by gavel taps lessening in intensity until the only sound in the courtroom was a dim pink, pink, pink. The judge might have been rapping the bench with a pencil. In possession of his court once more, Judge Taylor leaned back in his chair. He looked suddenly weary, and his age was showing, and I thought about what Atticus had said. He and Mr. Taylor didn't kiss much. He must have been nearly 70. There has been a request, Judge Taylor said, that this courtroom be cleared of spectators, or at least of women and children, a request that will be denied for the time being. People generally see what they look for and hear what they listen for, and they have the right to subject their children to it. But I can assure you of one thing, you will receive what you see and hear in silence, or you will leave this courtroom, but you won't leave it until the whole boiling of you come before me on contempt charges. Mr. Ewell, you will keep your testimony within the confines of Christian language usage, if that is possible. Proceed, Mr. Gilmore. Mr. Ewell reminded me of a deaf mute. I was sure he had never heard the words Judge Taylor directed at him. His mouth struggled silently with him, but their import registered on his face. Smudgeness faded from it, replaced by a dogged eagerness that fooled Judge Taylor not at all. As long as Mr. Ewell was on the stand, the judge kept his eyes on him and as if daring to make him make a false move. All right, guys, we are now stopping at page 233. You are responsible to read up to page 238 and go ahead, find a quote. And you can find a quote within the period, this period right here, and within the reading sections that I provided, or you can read ahead and finish chapter 17 and look for a quote there. Don't forget, guys, at the end of this class period to number 1, turn in this reading log as it is due today, and also your Dr. Martin Luther King collaborative poster that you did yesterday.